I call the meeting of the San Juan Unified Board of Education to order. There is one closed session item on tonight's agenda, student expulsions in two cases, Education Code Section 48918F. We do not have any speaker cards on the closed session agenda items. We will now move into closed session and will return to open session at 6:30 p.m. I call the meeting of the San Juan Unified Board of Education back to order. The meeting is being audio and video recorded, and the recording may capture sounds and images of those attending this meeting. The recording will be posted on the district's website. Board meetings are being held in person in the boardroom at the district office, and the community is welcome to attend. The meeting may also be viewed on the district's YouTube channel where it's being live streamed. Please stand for the presentation of colors by the Casa Roble Fundamental High School Air Force Junior ROTC.
Forward, arch. Color guard. Oh. Ready, ace. Ready, ace. Form, color guard. Ready, ace. Present, arms. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Order, arms. Ready, ace. Forward, arch.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Zima Creason, Board President. To my left is Ms. Pam Costa, Board Vice President. To her left is Mr. Steve Miller, Board Clerk. And to his left is Mr. Ben Avey, Ms. Paula Viesquez, Ms. Tanya Krevchek, and Mr. Saul Hernandez, Board members. To my right is Superintendent Ms. Melissa Bassinelli, and to her right is Board Administrative Assistant Stephanie Cunningham. Individuals who are attending the meeting in person and would like to offer a public comment, we ask that you complete a speaker request card available at the staff table, and you will be called on at the appropriate time during the meeting. Please note that Board Bylaw 9323 limits visitor comments to 2 minutes per speaker with no more than 30 minutes per single topic. Time will be extended for any speaker who uses an interpreter. Please note that public comments, including your name, become part of the public record. We are now at item D, approval of minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from February 28th? Moved by Ms. Krevchek. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Viesquez. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions. That was unanimous. We are now at item E1, high school student council reports. Tonight, we're going to hear from representatives of La Entrada, El Sereno, and Meraki High Schools. Welcome, and let's begin with Jenna Pruitt and Lorenzo Camarina from La Entrada.
Good evening, Ms. Creason, members of the board, Superintendent Bassinelli, and Ms. Cunningham. I am Jenna Pruitt.
And I am Lorenzo Camarena from La Entrada High School.
We are 2023 graduating seniors. Post-COVID, we are adjusting well back to in-person learning. Our challenges now are mainly positive. We focus on setting goals and graduating high school and carving out our different paths towards becoming successful adults. We earn our high school diplomas using the Apex online program. The path towards graduating may look different for some of us, but all the same, we have the care and support of our principal, teachers, staff members, and counselors. We have cultivated a strong school climate and culture that is inviting for us and our families. We started family night for senior planning, monthly nacho bar incentive for class completion, quarterly barbecues and kickball weather permitted. We also had 2 field trips to college campuses. We had the opportunity of going to Sierra and American River colleges.
To top it all off, he spends time on campus with us during passing periods, at lunch, and when we need to talk, we can depend on him giving us his attention. Aside from Miss Lim being our math teacher, we have additional support from Miss Twilla, who is a retired math teacher from San Juan High School. She is on campus at least 3 times weekly and roves throughout the day to work with students. Some students take college courses through dual enrollment at American River College. Others who may be on a different path than college are enrolled at San Juan High School's Culinary Arts program.
We meet weekly with Ms. Lim, who is also our yearbook coordinator, to design the 2022 to 2023 version. Fun Friday is in Miss Tim's classroom. We play games and participate in other activities. We have a weekly creative arts and walking club too. Some of us attend group sessions with our counselors, Mrs. Casey and Mr. Galvez. They have created a protective and safe environment for us to get together where we can build relationships and strong bonds through talking openly about things we may be struggling with.
Every other Thursday, Adriana Lorero and Virginia Brahim, the school community prevention specialists, visit our campus to discuss youth addiction prevention strategies. As seniors, we meet with our counselors and Mrs. French, who is our Yeti, as we call her, for meetings about attending college and filling out FAFSA forms. Also, for those of us who are employed but are not 18 years old, she assigns work permits. La Entrada is unique. It is a pleasure to be here to share some of the exciting things going on at our school. You are always welcome to stop by and spend some time on our campus.
Graduation 2023 is June 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the report. Any questions, comments from the board? Ms. Viescas.
Can you hear me? Testing? Great. I can hear myself, so I can assume you all can hear me as well. Thank you, Jenna and Lorenzo, for your report. A lot of the report centered around kind of what next steps and what comes next. And I wanted to invite both or either of you to share what your plans for next fall might look like as we start to look at towards the next chapter, if you would like to. No pressure if you don't want to. You can also respectfully decline that.
Well, I am looking into tattoo schools and other training like apprenticeships and things, but that's my plan for the fall and like throughout the summer once I turn 18, because you are required to be 18, but that's my plan for the future. So
I was thinking of taking a construction class at San Juan High School, and maybe a culinary arts next year, and then after that, auto shop at ARC.
Excellent. Thank you both for sharing. And Lorenzo, thank you as well for kind of highlighting one of the unique benefits of being at the site that you guys are at, right? Is you kind of can take advantage of what's happening at different sites. So good luck to both of you with your future goals. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Mr. Hernandez.
Jen, I was just gonna let you know that if you need, someone to practice your tattoos, Ms. Vasquez would be happy to do that.
Have 4, so I was going to offer that myself. For a second, I thought Mr. Hernandez was going to offer that. It's going to get really interesting, but I'm also willing to participate.
thank you.
Test subject.
I have to say, I also thought, I'm sorry, Ms. Krupchak.
I'm going to leave the tattoos to these two. But I found it very amazing that you referenced relationships a lot throughout your report. It's not maybe it's common, but I would say it is unusual to hear so much emphasis on that. And I literally wrote it down, care and support of principal and staff, relationships and strong bonds. And it's just very good to hear that. I'm glad you are so well supported at school. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Awesome. It was a wonderful report. Again, I was really taken by the emphasis on the future. You know, we are at the second, we're heading towards the summer, although it doesn't look like it outside. So it's wonderful to hear the what's next from the students. And also, you know, I will sign up for some tattoo time. Appreciate so much that you get up there and you're thinking about your goals. And even if they're unconventional or untraditional, you're out there going to do the thing. And it's wonderful. Apprenticeship programs are available in a wide variety of areas that can make you a whole lot of money. I mean, tat artists can make a whole lot of money when they do it right. That entrepreneurial mindset, you have all the respect. And the CTE programming, it's so wonderful that we're able to provide that in a variety of modalities so you can figure out what's great for you. So thank you so much for the report. One more round of applause. Next, we will hear from Angelina Obu and Michelle Yang from El Sereno High School.
President Creason, members of the board, Superintendent Bassanelli, Ms. Cunningham, I am Angelina from El Sereno High School.
I am Michelle from El Sereno High School.
El Sereno's alternative study experience is unique among the San Juan Unified School District as it allows for a flexible student schedule and experience for all of the students. Our school grants students the opportunity to come onto campus any day of the school week, fitting their academic lives into their daily lives. Despite being an alternative studies school, El Sereno's athletes are supported as well and are able to attend their traditional schools teams for further practice. Students who are not able to attend classes in person are able to join through online methods such as Zoom. The teachers are available for assistance during and outside of school hours to aid their students in their academic progression via Remind. Attendance is gained by submitting work rather than the traditional method of having students come on campus and attend the classes in person. El Sereno provides a diverse selection of classes, including many unique extracurriculars. Aside from the main course classes, we offer philosophy, mythology, criminology, astronomy, and more. Students are also given the option to take AP courses in our nearby colleges. As an El Sereno student, both the academic experience and one-on-one learning with teachers have been the most fulfilling in my school experience. I found my own way of studying, and I feel very confident in unraveling my future academic journey. For us, one of the highlights of our experience is the student government.
Our student government team helps our school with organizing important events as well as some fun activities. We occasionally hold events with Meraki, such as our upcoming prom and our past Halloween dance. The prom that we will be hosting this April with Meraki will take the theme of a Gothic Victoria masquerade. Like last semester, we are holding another picnic to help bring students together. At this picnic, we will provide food and mini games to keep everyone entertained. We are currently putting together Easter baskets for kids in need with Helping Hands Orangevale, using funds donated by our generous teachers and students. Not only that, but we are gathering cans and other non-perishable items for the food drive at Helping Hands Orangevale. At the moment, we are searching for other volunteer activities, like farms and cleanups or other ways to make others happy, such as when we sent Valentine's Day cards to seniors. In our student government class, we value both the enjoyment of the students at our school, but also helping the community and hopes to alleviate the stress of fulfilling duties for others. My classmates and I have benefited in our time in our student government class, as we are not only given the opportunity to bond with each other through our various activities, but we can also enhance our leadership skills by organizing important events and taking the initiative to reach our hands out to others in the community who require assistance. Though El Sereno's program is different from many other schools in the district, we thoroughly enjoy our many unique experiences here. We would like to thank the board for listening and being there for us as a community. Thank you.
For your report, any comments, questions from the board? Okay. I do. It was wonderful to hear from you and hear what you got going on. I love that you blend your programming with your, I don't want to say sister school, neighbor school. Let's say that. Because I think sometimes when we hear about flex learning, that we think that means that kids aren't getting the opportunity to participate in sports or have dances, but you absolutely do a whole lot of community spirit and activities. So I appreciate you uplifting that. I also appreciate you uplifting the Zoom option that's continuing post-distance learning. I know for a lot of folks, that wasn't a great way to learn, but for other students, they thrived in that environment. So it's wonderful. That was one thing that I said continually for the kids that it works for. We need to continue to have that option. So I'm really happy that it's still being offered and it's working for who it's working for, because we need to meet you, the student, where you're at. So I appreciate you uplifting that option. And then you talked a bit about sports. How are your, if you know, not to put you on the spot, but how are your teams doing?
Well, I really only know of one person who attends Del Campo's volleyball team. And I think it's really cool that El Sereno allows the opportunity to give athletes, that option, because we are technically a homeschool.
Awesome. Well, one more round of applause. And again, thank you so much. We will hear from Keegan Summers from Meraki.
Good evening, President Creason, members of the board, Superintendent Bassanelli, and Ms. Cunningham. I'm Keegan Summers from Meraki High School. I would like to share some exciting things that have taken place at Meraki recently and some events we are looking forward to. Throughout January and February, our students made Valentine's cards for veterans through the organization Soldiers Angels. These Valentines were then sent out to veterans who no longer have any family. On February 15th, we collaborated with El Sereno on an art showcase where students displayed their art around campus where family and friends could walk around and see it. Recently, Meraki has evolved to include more project-based learning. Although projects have always been a big part of the school, larger-scale, multidisciplinary projects are more of a new addition. Our recent Futures Wild science project included aspects of art and design, as well as math and writing. In January, our wind turbine project, which focused on energy creation and consumption, also included PE, history, and critical thinking. Last week, a group of 18 students went on a camping trip to Angel Island for 3 days. They survived a heavy rain the first night, but had glorious views of the bay on Wednesday. We're happy to announce that just last night, Year 3 student Neil Wallace took first place in the Fair Oaks Rotary Speech Contest and will be moving on to the district semifinals. Currently, we are preparing for a film production by our Arts, Media, and Entertainment program, which will take place at San Juan High School from March 16th to March 18th, with the San Juan Culinary Program catering for us. On Monday, March 27th, our annual Majors Week will begin. This is a week in which nearly all regular classes are canceled, and we take the time to lead and participate in crash courses, go on field trips, and simply play games together. Most of these events are student-led. At the end of the week, we will participate in a small celebration and reflect on all the learning opportunities that took place. On April 14th, our annual open mic night will take place, where students perform things like music, improv, poetry, etc. Our AME program often films this, and in the past has live streamed it so that people have the opportunity to watch it from home. We also have a variety of unique clubs continuing around campus. One to mention would be the Beekeeping Club, which is looking to expand to 4 hives soon. Some other clubs continuing include a game design club, a gardening club, a poetry club, and a tea and chess club. A lot of our students are also continuing to take college courses, as we have the flexibility to participate in dual enrollment. Some popular courses include astronomy, sociology, Japanese, and ASL. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed hearing about Meraki.
Thank you for the report. Questions, comments from the board? Ms. Raby.
Thank you, Keegan, so much for your presentation. I loved hearing about the project-based learning. I think that's it's an invaluable way to learn because you do pick up so many skills across sector. And I think more than anything, project-based learning, you really get into problem solving, which I think is one of the most important skills that you can take into life that you really only get when you're in that space working on something, trying to figure out something that's just outside of what you're used to. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Mr. Hernandez.
And I just like to compliment you and your peers for the thinking.
I don't think you're on.
Now? Testing. Oh, there we go. Keegan, I just want to compliment you and your peers, thinking of our service people that are out there to send them cards. I think that's outstanding. And that's not normally something that people will think about doing. And so I commend you for that too. That means a lot to our service people. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you for the report. You have a very busy schedule. I won't repeat some of the things that my colleagues mentioned, but appreciate you taking the time to share everything that you're doing with us. And if we could ever be helpful, we love to get invites to all your many activities, and we show up when we can. So thanks again. Let's do another round of applause. I want to thank all of you for your report. Student voice is incredibly important to the board, and we really appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. So thanks again. We are now at items E2 through E5, and we do not have any reports from staff or board-appointed district committees, employee organizations, or other district committees. That means we are at item E6, closed session expulsion actions. Mr. Miller.
Thank you, President Creason. The board did vote unanimously to accept a hearing panel's recommendation of one suspended expulsion in case number S36 and to accept as written one stipulated expulsion in case number S37.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. We are now at item F, visitor comments. We do have a speaker card for general visitor comment. Comments are limited to 2 minutes. The clock on the screen counts down the time. Under the Ralph M. Brown Act, the board is not allowed to comment on items that are not on the,
For agenda item.
I misunderstood the notes and pretend I didn't say any of that. We do not have any comments at this time. So moving on to item G, consent calendar. Do any board members wish to remove any items from the consent calendar? See, Mr. Miller.
I just wanted to make a comment on items 6, 7, and 8, I believe. I just wanted to say it caught my eye that we had change orders from the bond issue on the agenda tonight, and being on consent, I'm going, you know, what's the story here? Well, they're all $0 change orders. It has to do with the lease schedule, the leaseback schedule. So I just wanted to point that out.
Okay.
And I'll move the.
I was thinking, you want to move the item?
Yes, I do. I'll move consent calendar.
Moved by Mr. Miller. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Kravchuk. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions. That was unanimous. We are at item I1, San Juan Youth Voice Advocates Update. Mr. Covello.
Good evening, President Creason, members of the board, Superintendent Bassanelli, and Ms. Cunningham. The importance of gathering and incorporating student voice in the development of district goals and actions is essential. Therefore, tonight it's my pleasure to introduce an update from the San Juan Youth Voice Advocates. This evening, Christina Sparks, Coordinator of Special Programs and Grants, will be joined by 3 student leaders and youth voice advocates, Fatima Adel, Amaya Farias, and Evan Ewan, who will share with you an overview of their program and some of the amazing work they have facilitated with students across our district. Dana.
Good evening. In 2017, San Juan Unified became part of the first cohort of LEAs to be awarded the Learning Communities for School Success program grant. The development of site-based leadership groups was an identified grant activity that resulted in the creation of Students with a Voice, or SWAB, at 3 high schools. In 2019, SWAB students wanted a way to gather qualitative data for their school climate projects. As part of the community schools component of the grant, we partnered with Innovation Bridge to provide listening session training to staff, so it seemed logical to meet the request from SWAB students by supporting them in leading listening sessions. From there grew the San Juan Youth Voice Advocates, a group of students who wanted to hear from other students. This initial idea expanded with the support of San Juan Unified's Department of Continuous Improvement and LCAP and the partnership with Student Support Services. San Juan Youth Voice Advocates' primary function is now to help inform the district's LCAP. These continued partnerships have resulted in a student leadership program that has flourished within the challenges of the previous few school years. In 2021, a peer mentor component was added to provide support to new youth voice advocates. I now invite Fatima Adel from Rio Americano High School to give an overview of the San Juan Youth Voice Advocates program.
Thank you. Thank you. The San Juan Youth Voice Advocates are a team of high school students who elevate student voice in San Juan Unified by engaging students in listening sessions to help inform the district's local control and accountability plan. We are 23 Youth Voice Advocates, including 6 peer mentors with members from 10 high schools. This is an increase from 2021 to 2022 when we had 13 advocates, including 2 peer mentors with members from 8 high schools. As Youth Voice Advocates, we attend 12 hours of training led by Innovation Bridge to enhance our skills in facilitation of listening sessions, coding data, and reporting to elevate student voice in San Juan Unified. We are responsible for co-facilitating multiple listening sessions at all grade levels, with about 15 to 25 student participants each. We then compile the qualitative data into a site report with recommendations based on participant responses. You've heard us mention listening sessions several times this evening, and you may be wondering what they are. San Juan Youth Voice Advocates facilitate gatherings of students to provide feedback on the questions developed in partnership with the LCAP team. We always start with the community icebreaker and end with the closing circle. We make an effort to create an atmosphere where participants feel safe to share and learn from others. In 2022 to 2023, San Juan Youth Voice Advocates facilitated 31 listening sessions, more than double the amount of sessions from last year. We facilitated sessions at 10 high schools, 9 middle schools, 4 K-8s, 7 elementary schools, and had a combined session with middle school Black Student Union members from 3 schools. In total, 538 students participated in listening sessions facilitated by San Juan Youth Voice Advocates from November to February. Site coordinators were asked to invite students who represent the diversity of their campus, including those from LCAP and district priority population groups. I now invite Evan Yuen from Mariloma High School to share common themes we heard across the district.
Thank you, Fatima. These themes were identified through a process of coding the data and highlighting the most often mentioned topics. The themes I will share tonight are the top themes identified across schools and grade levels district-wide, and our final report, including all identified themes, is expected to be completed by the end of the month. The first theme identified is that students want engaging, interactive lessons, activities and programs, including varied teaching strategies and more elective options. Hands-on science, math, and career technical education activities were mentioned often. Students also want to learn about each other and have more opportunities to connect inside the classroom at school-wide assemblies and rallies and at after-school events, clubs, and other programs. Another theme identified is some students feel unsafe at school due to bullying, racism, and harassment. Some secondary students also report that substance use, particularly in bathrooms, creates anxiety and fear, in addition to fights on campus. Students feel connected and safe when staff are approachable, helpful, caring, inclusive, and friendly. The third theme is that students want staff to take issues such as racism, hate speech, bullying, sexual harassment, and assault more seriously. They want teachers and other trusted adults to take action when they witness or hear it. Next, secondary students feel overworked and overwhelmed with competing deadlines leading to stress and anxiety. They would like teachers to consider the stressors and responsibilities they have outside of school, which then impact their schoolwork and learning. This will help them explore interests that may be relevant to their future. Additionally, the various career and college events, fairs, field trips, and presentations have been helpful for future pathways, but students want more of them and earlier in their educational experience. Elementary students want to learn and read about jobs and careers. Secondary students want to hear from and speak to professionals at school events or field trips. All students want more club options or short-term after-school classes on a focused topic, for example, a week-long cooking class. This helps them learn and explore their interests. Lastly, students feel it is important to know exactly how to access opportunities and resources, such as college and career information, mental health resources, on-campus supports, like nurses and counselors, as well as community agencies to support needs and challenges at home. I now invite Amaya Farias from Casa Roble High School to share San Juan Youth Voice Advocates' recommendations in response to these identified themes.
Thank you, Evan.
The following recommendations are a compilation of recommendations from site reports in response to themes identified district-wide. 1. Invest in or expand activities that engage students and provide interactive experiences for learning, connecting with others, and exploring future pathways. Examples given were Avid, Bridges, Improve Your Tomorrow, Project Optimism, Web Peer Mentorship, Career and Technical Education, sports, and leadership programs. 2. Provide staff with training, resources, and support for addressing and interrupting behaviors that prevent students from learning and feeling safe, such as disruptive classroom behaviors, bullying, racism, and LGBTQ+ or sexual harassment. 3. Invest in assemblies, speakers, and materials for class discussions on bullying, exclusion, racism, harassment, and drug and alcohol prevention. Invest in professional development for staff focused on increased awareness of these areas. Additionally, implement more policies that consider accommodations that meet cultural and religious needs. Increase the presence of increase the presence of safety school specialists and campus monitors. Secondary students feel this will help with issues of fighting, harassment, and substance abuse, particularly vaping in bathrooms that lead to bathrooms being closed. Elementary students feel additional campus or hall monitors would help with bullying and make them feel safer on campus. Elementary and middle school students feel additional security would help prevent strangers from entering campus, which is a big concern of theirs. 5. Foster a school culture where the focus is on learning and exploration rather than grades. This includes staff who provide clear explanations, check in with students for understanding, and encourage questions. Increase ways to provide individual support to students who need help, such as more teaching assistants, tutoring, teacher office hours, and peer mentoring. 6. Identify ways to increase awareness of school, district, and community resources available to students and families. Students want help, but at times don't know how to access it. Make it easy for them to get the supports needed, including academic resources and tutoring, college and future pathway information, mental health resources, and community resources to help with needs at home. Thank you for listening to our recommendations. I will now share how my participation in San Juan Youth Voice Advocates has impacted me. The Youth Voice Advocates was the first organization to make me act as a true leader. It's taught many shining students how to implement a skill set with passion to stem effective policies and draw special, truthful feedback for reports. Over the past 3 years, this group has diversified mine and my peers' processes, but most importantly, it's aided to develop our thinking. The teachings in this group are lessons I feel every student would gain perspective from because it teaches valuable life lessons. One being that nobody's weird, inferior, or maybe even superior. Rather, they're just different than you are. Everyone expresses what they like differently than another person may. And acknowledging respect and comfort in those differences is what ultimately fosters the discipline for us to all collaborate as peers. I now invite Evan to share his experience.
Thank you. The SJYVA program has impacted my life in ways I never would have imagined. As a dedicated advocate for historically underrepresented communities, I've constantly worked towards empowering others to let themselves be heard. Serving as a San Juan advocate has given me that opportunity to further the goal and more. Working with kids of all ages on a school-by-school basis has sparked within me a love for building positive change on a positive and personal, meaningful level. Not only that, but I've had the opportunity to take part firsthand in the building of a more promising future for all San Juan students. Every conversation I had the privilege of joining in simply revealed more potential within each and every one of the youth who participated in the listening sessions I helped facilitate. That is to say, The SJYVA program has truly helped me grow as a person. It has given me motivation to pursue policymaking and education in the future, both in college and in my future career. It's given me the skills I need and the inspiration to become a true advocate, both for the people around me and anyone I might meet. My journey to this moment has been bumpy at times, but the SJYVA program has truly helped me succeed. I now invite Fatima to share her experience.
I was first introduced to the San Juan Youth Voice Advocate program last year, and since then, I've greatly improved my facilitation skills and become more open-minded toward the ideas of my peers. It's great hearing what students around me have to say about their school sites, making me more informed about my school community. This program has allowed me to support other students, including myself, when it comes to educational opportunities. As well as listening sessions, reports are an important part of gathering data. Before San Juan Youth Voice Advocates, I never went through a process where I collectively gathered important information and data. Overall, this program has made me more aware of my school community and taught me ways to be helpful toward all students. Mrs. Sparks will now share next steps for San Juan Youth Voice Advocates.
Thank you, Fatima. The next steps for our San Juan Youth Voice Advocates and their work are the completion of a district-wide report of themes and recommendations by grade level, including pre- and post-participant survey data. Monthly meetings, including continued skill enhancement, program development, and a year-end celebration. Of course, we always celebrate. And recruitment of new advocates for the upcoming school year. Lastly, we would like to acknowledge and thank our supporters and partners in this work. And at this time, we are open to any questions the board may have.
Thank you for the fabulous report. We do have public comment. Ms. Rye, please facilitate public comment.
We do have one speaker, bell raised.
Before my comment, can we just give them a round of applause? Amazing and fantastic. Greetings and good evening, a superintendent, board president, board members, staff, and of course, the San Juan Unified School District community. My name is Dr. Bel Reyes. I have the distinct honor of serving as the executive director of Innovation Bridge. And we've had the privilege over the past few years to work closely in support of the Youth Voice Advocates. And we just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you all for your continued investment and prioritization, right? Not only of youth leadership, but youth voice. And so we absolutely applaud you for recognizing that their voice and that shared accountability and ensuring just the overall engagement and experiences of our young people involve youth voice and youth leadership, not only as the co-designers of what that looks like and helping to inform and shape our LCAP and our school site level planning and decision-making, but also that they're facilitators of what that process looks like. And I also want to just take a moment to just express much love and respect. Would love for them to stand again, our wonderful Youth Voice Advocates, for their amazing and courageous facilitators and designers in the overall process of facilitating, as you saw in their presentation this evening, and engaging over 500 plus young people across the district, again, to help inform and shape the specifics around the needs, the enhancements, the strengths, and the actions within our local control accountability plan. So thank you all. Much love and respect to our wonderful Youth Voice Advocates, and also want to recognize the many adults that have absolutely been just champions and allies in the work of the Youth Voice Advocates over the past few years. We have Miss Leslie that would love to just give her a round of applause and appreciation. Mr. Dominic, and of course, and especially Miss Christina Sparks, and if she could please stand, her leadership has been incredible and remarkable over the past few years, not only essential, but fundamental when we think about youth leadership across our district. And with that, again, just wanted to take the opportunity to just thank you all again for your continued support of what youth leadership looks like across the San Juan Unified School District. And we look forward to our continued partnership. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Comments, questions from the board? Mr. Miller.
Oh, I didn't want to go first. Thank you very much for the presentation. These are the building blocks of your life moving forward. I was so happy to hear, the facilitating skills. That's where you can draw out people that aren't quite prepared to, contribute. And those are who we want to hear from. They usually have some of the best ideas. I heard phrases from Amelia like valuable life lessons. It is a valuable life lesson. You're doing this at the school level, and we need to hear from you as a school board. But this will also be true throughout your life, whether it be a city council, a board of supervisors, is that outreach and being involved. And you may not be the elected person, but you can sure facilitate your community. And so I really like that. And reaching out to the true stakeholders to hear how they feel about everything is just so important. I'm thinking, I said school board or city council, but it could be your neighborhood association or crime watch or whatever, just putting that together and making sure all your neighbors heard. So great work as students. We need to hear from you. And I hope you take all these skills into your adult lives and they will serve you well. Thank you so much.
Mr. Miller, or I'm sorry, Mr. Avey.
Thank you. So wonderful presentation. I really appreciate this program, especially from the LCAP perspective, right? The first two words in LCAP are local control, which means we get to decide how the money's spent. And I think hearing from key stakeholder groups, hearing from students, hearing from parents is so vital. And I know that their voice is taken into consideration into that process, but I just want to make sure everybody knows how valuable I think it is. And then just going through your specific points, they were very in-depth. They were very good. Just summarizing it, I think it's important to note that just what I heard was students want to be engaged. They want to be safe and they want to be supported. And you guys went into very specific bullet points of how we could do that. But I think it's important because there's so many tropes about, especially teenagers, right? They're disengaged. They want to be independent. They want to do their own thing. But I think when you have a properly facilitated discussion, what actually comes down is what we probably already know, which is they want opportunities to be engaged and involved. They want to feel safe and they want to have the supports that may go beyond what you would normally think. So I appreciate the voice. I appreciate you contributing to the LCAP because ultimately I think impact the budget for the entire school district. So well done.
Other comments, questions from the board? Ms. Costa.
I was so impressed with the increased number of student participants in the listening circles and the number of listening circles. And I was also really grateful that you included elementary and K-8 students. I hope next year we'll hear from even more of the schools. That was really exciting to me to know that we're getting a perspective from high school, middle school, and elementary. So thank you for that. I had one question, and that's, are the recommendations in priority order or are they just your recommendations listed?
No, our recommendations are not in priority order because we feel everything is of equal importance if it feels like it's an important issue to the students.
Great. Thank you for a job well done. We really appreciate you.
Any other comments, questions from the board? Just quickly, just want to thank you. It was an amazing presentation and I love hearing directly from you and I love the model, right? You're being empowered as leaders to lead this work, but we're going to where the students are instead of saying, hey, look at the shiny thing, come tell us how great it is, or come to wherever we happen to be at. If you want to lift your voice, you're actually going out there. I love the safe space that you're creating because we know that some students or just people in general want to talk to their peers. They want to talk to people that are living the pain just like they are, closest to the pain, look like they look. There's so much representation that you're bringing to the table that is opening the door for meaningful, real dialogue that may not happen in some other venues. So just all of you did an amazing job up here. And I want you to know sometimes there's a lot of advocacy work that happens and it goes on a shelf. And it's like, okay, I did all this work and I put all this heart into it. Now what? Well, I just want you to know that you've made an impact on everyone on this dais, and your work really will impact the work of the LCAP and beyond. So please just know that your work is valued and appreciated and really will lead to so much more in your impact on advocacy as leaders, but also how you empowered advocacy at the local, at the local school sites will bloom beyond this. So thank you. Thank you. I would love to give them a round of applause.
Yeah.
Can I say?
Superintendent Bassanelli.
I just want to extend my gratitude to the team here. So these amazing students are just representatives of a broader group that that helps facilitate these sessions. And I have to tell you, there's times where I have attended these sessions and I have been so impressed by the thoughtfulness of the student facilitators, particularly with the questions that they ask. At times it's hard to draw out information from peers, and they have such a wonderful way of continuing with their inquiry and really elevating voice in the moment, even to the point where there was a time where I was tripped up and I was like, is this a student or a staff person? Because there was a lot of wisdom right there. And so I want to thank the team. They also, what you don't see is we give them questions that we think that we want to ask related for students related to the LCAP, and they make our questions so much better. They make them more student-centered and more relatable. And so I want to thank you for your feedback and support of the work that we do. It really makes a difference. And then I want to thank Christina Sparks for her leadership of this program, and also Innovation Bridge for their partnership. And we have staff that are also key partners in this, and we couldn't do it without them. So thank you very much for this.
Awesome. Thanks again for the report. Really appreciate you. We are at item I2, Nutrition Services Update. Mr. Camarda.
Good evening, and thank you, President Creason, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Bassanelli, and Ms. Cunningham. You have heard from the Facilities Division. You've heard from the Operations Division, Facilities Construction Update, a Maintenance Update. I think it's important that you hear from the Operations group as a whole. So tonight we're going to highlight Nutrition Services. They've done just an incredible job. We're going to go back a bunch of years. It's been a while since we've done a Nutrition Services Update, and I just wanted to make sure that we give the nutrition service workers that have worked tirelessly every day to feed our children breakfast and lunch, not only on a daily basis, but I'll go back a few years when we were dealing with the COVID shutdown, the lockdowns. We were all essential workers. So the Nutrition Services Department stepped up and offered meal service through the COVID. So I think that's important to understand. I know you guys know that, but I think they have never been publicly recognized. So I'd like to publicly recognize all the nutrition services workers that not only deal with the day-to-day feeding of our students, but also through the crisis of COVID, stepping up and feeding students through that. So tonight you're going to hear from Director Sneh Nair. She's going to talk about the department's most recent updates, talk about funding, talking about the program requirements, talk a lot about our meal counts and how they've increased, and also go into a little bit about the Universal Meals Program. So with that, I'd like to introduce our Director of Nutrition Services, Ms. Sneh Nair, and then after she is completed, we can go ahead and answer any questions that the board might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kamada. Board President Creason, members of the board, Superintendent Bassanelli. This is going to be pretty much a summary of what we do in food services. And as Mr. Kamada mentioned, this is actually starting from 2018, which was before the actual pandemic hit us. So nutrition services, we operate under the USDA's National School Lunch Program and the National School Breakfast Program at all our schools. And of course, we are required that the breakfast that is selected by a student must have the number of items, and which actually for a student to be able to go through the line has to have at least a fruit option. And then for lunch, a student needs to have a certain number of meal components, which must include at least a fruit or a vegetable. Any meals that we offer must follow the meal patterns that have been established by USDA, and we meet the weekly dietary specifications for calories, whole grains, milk, saturated fats, sodium, and of course, 0 grams of trans fats. As we have heard through this year, California was one of the first states to implement the Universal Meals Program, and they came up with 3 key pillars to make sure that the program is a success. The first one was the state meal mandate changed to be expanded to provide 2 meals free of charge, which is a breakfast and a lunch during each school day to students that request a meal, regardless of their free and reduced meal eligibility. And what this did was it gave equity to all enrolled students. There was no unpaid meal debt. It, of course, reduced food insecurity, a strain on family budgets, and the stigma of being eligible for a free meal or a reduced price meal, and definitely assisted students in the learning process. The pillar 2 of California Universal Meals was that we were mandated by the state to make any student or any school that was more than 40% qualified under the direct certification for students through who were identified as homeless, migrant, foster, runaway, to come into a group that we as a district decided to do as a community eligibility provision option. For starting 22-23 school year, we grouped 46 of our schools into one community eligibility provision group, which gave us 51.02% reimbursement back from the feds. What this did was it helped us maximize federal reimbursement. And at those 46 schools, we did not have to collect any federal meal applications. Pillar number 3 under California Universal Meals was that anytime when I mentioned in the second pillar that we only got 51% back in reimbursement from the federal government, the state made up for the difference. So any shortfall in any reimbursement that we got from the federal was made up by state dollars, and that helped us give us back the full 100% of dollars that we had claimed on these meals. So that was California's universal meals and the great advantages that we had. It's a busy graph, but it shows the meals that we had up until 21-22, where we compared them with what we were doing in the 18-19 school year. And as you can see, on the very bottom, the change from the prior year, once the pandemic hit in 2019-20, our, of course, percentage participation went down, decreased by 18%. In the year 2021, it went down even further. But the good news was that when we went back to 21-22 school year, we started to feed more students. So that was very good for us. And then revenue-wise, again, our total revenue that we received from the federal and the state from 18-19 to 19-20 decreased by 3%. And then unfortunately in the year 2021, it went down by almost 37% of the revenue. And then we managed to pull back up in 21-22 and went into the positive by 33%. What is interesting is our expenses really went up and continues to rise as we speak. So our expenses really drastically rose. So in the year 19-20, we distributed curbside meals from 27 schools. Our nutrition services staff, I had some staff who worked every day from when the pandemic hit through the summer, through 2020, 2021. They never took a day off, and they really were out there serving the students regardless of the weather and the conditions. And we continued through summer. Nutrition services followed any USDA waivers that we had for non-congregate feeding, meal patterns, anything that we could qualify to be able to feed more students in that. And they performed essential duties to all our students. So students did not have to go hungry. And our department districts, our districts departments, other departments, custodial, maintenance and operations, they all helped us in the distribution of meals. So that was very much appreciated. The challenges, of course, we had was staffing shortages due to COVID, and more significantly, food and food supplies availability and cost, which was very significant. In the year 2020-21, in January, we started with hybrid, and we did include some weekend meals, which gave families an option to be able to have food over the weekend. And then USDA allowed us to feed students at no charge. So that helped us be able to get more students to go through the line. Food supply chain continued to be disrupted. And we just had to pivot from whatever food supplies we got, whatever items that came to our warehouse dock was what we could actually offer to our students. This actually just highlights some pictures that shows how our staff were out there. And I'd like to take this moment to thank Paula for some of the masks that her mom made for us, and they may be out there as well. So thank you for that. And if I can get this to work. So what we have now done is trying to look forward into the meal services. We do follow what we call cycle menus. So we try and offer a 2 or a 3 week cycle at our entree options for our elementary schools, starting from September of 2019. All our students get offered a meat and a non-meat option for entree. Our middle and high schools continue with a variety of menu options. And then we do have produce and milk options that we offer to our students. The students have an opportunity to follow what's called offer versus serve, so they don't have to take everything that is out on the line. And then our family menus that do get posted on the website do indicate whether the product contains beef, is a vegetarian option, or a vegan option. Again, our food supply chains continue to be disrupted. And so that's what we are continuously dealing with. We did get some other funding through the pandemic. So we had Gen Youth that in partnership with the California Milk Advisory Board gave us about $69,000 that was used towards supplies and equipment during the pandemic. No Kid Hungry gave us $40,000 that was used for the purchase of cold storage equipment. The federal government gave us a reimbursement of close to $1 million just for recovery costs for the pandemic. We had some kitchen infrastructure and training funds that we got that was about $76,000 that we received in February of 2022. And then we got a supply chain assistance funds, once again from the state, close to $1 million that helped us now to purchase more produce that goes on the trays. Moving forward, we're going to continue with our California Universal Meals. We are trying to reestablish nutrition education through Harvest of the Month program, continuing to focus on the reduction of food waste, and trying to, starting May, to try and implement some more freshly prepared meals on sites. So that is something else that we're going to do moving forward, trying to deal with all the challenges of staffing and supplies. We hope that we will get through this and look to make our schools and our students come in for breakfast and lunch. very briefly wanting to show you, we do have a central warehouse from where we take produce and product out to our school sites. We carry an inventory total of about close to 750,000 on a daily basis. And every day we send about $40,000 to $50,000 worth of products in 6 trucks to all our schools to be able to prepare the meals at the school sites. So we will still continue. As everyone must be aware, USDA has now come up with a new proposed rule with transitional standards for milk, sodium, and whole grains. So we are looking very closely in that to see how we as a district would be able to do where, our little students in grades K through 5 will not be able to get any more chocolate milk. Our sodium target's really going to decrease. And everything has to be whole grain, which, the kids may not like the taste of some of the things that we will have on our menus. So that was very, very brief. Thank you. And I think we're open for any questions and comments.
Really appreciate the report. Let's start with questions, comments from the board. Ms. Viescas.
Wanted to make sure you saw my green light.
I did not appreciate your request.
I'll shift it this way. Thank you very much for the report and just through some really tough years being the front lines literally on the front lines for our students and our families. I really appreciate this opportunity just to say thank you, both to you and to all of your staff. And want to just note for my colleagues that this is a pretty brief and incomprehensive summary, I think, of a lot of the things that we've tackled lately that the Nutrition Services Department continues to face a variety of challenges just head on, completely focused on how do we meet the needs of our families and students. I think back to the community eligibility provision schools, and you noted here, how many campuses now participating?
46.
That's tremendous. That's a tremendous impact. And even before it was a requirement of state law that we participate. We were one of the leading school districts in participating as soon as the feds changed the rules so that we could participate. So just staying on top of all of the rules is an incredible job and a job well done. And I want to thank you for being on top of it at every turn. Other things that kind of popped up, it was school nutrition data and enrollment that informed pandemic EBT data when the state quickly rushed to try to get resources, cash out to families. That was a huge pivot. I was living multiple sides of that in my prior role as Assistant Secretary for Health and Human Services Agency, and just seeing how quickly our schools had to pivot in order to provide that information, and did, again, at the service of our families. Even kind of the ongoing changing needs of our community to meet religious and cultural needs in the nutrition and what we provide out. That's not an easy thing to do, and we do it at every turn. And these are small things, but have huge consequences. And so I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you. And it means a lot to someone who, as a student, had their most reliable meal at school. So this work remains incredibly important. I'm grateful that we have such a wonderful team tackling all of this. And I also want to note that I'm going to be sure to send those pictures to my mom, because she'll be very excited to see that her thousands of masks did in fact get used. I know we have a lot of challenges coming up. I'm envisioning like kindergartners rioting over chocolate milk. And I say that slightly dismissively, but like, I'm kind of upset about that. I like the chocolate milk myself. So there's some challenges coming down, especially, implementing universal school meals, et cetera. I'm confident we'll continue to tackle them, but there's still a lot of work ahead. But I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you.
Mr. Avey.
First and foremost, I too wanted to say thank you. I think especially in the early days of COVID, when literally we didn't have masks and Paula's mom was making them for you. You showed up and your team showed up, and kids didn't eat if you didn't. So thank you. I also just wanted to say, good job on the food. My kids actually pick and choose when they're going to eat school lunches. They wake up in the morning, they look at the calendar and they're like, oh, I'm going to get school lunch today. It's a pretty high compliment. They're pretty picky. I have been told that the new fettuccine is awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Orange chicken is also one of the fan favorites. But they really do seem to like it. It seems to be nutritious. It seems to be healthy. I don't think it's quite the bulk food that cafeterias had when I was in schools. I know it's going to be a challenge switching over, but I'm guessing it was probably a challenge as you made it a bit more healthy in this evolution of it. So I know that you can handle it. So I just want to say I really appreciate it. I work in my day job with a lot of kids that eat free lunches, and that is the food that they eat. So thank you to you and all of your colleagues.
Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you to my colleagues. I would just like to report, this is my second time hearing this report from Ms. Nair, and she reported to the facility committee, and just a couple comments from their perspective on how awesome Ms. Nair and her staff is doing culturally. Just like Paula mentioned, the ability to adapt to cultural needs has been amazing. Where I didn't know, for example, that when we do bacon, it's turkey bacon because we do not have pork. Correct, Ms. Nair?
No pork products.
Yeah, no pork, no pork products.
No more.
And, to think about this, $50,000 worth of food every day. That is amazing. And a new word that I learned that Ms. Nair is trying to provide for, again, to adapt to cultural needs is, what's the word?
Halal.
Yeah, halal. I learned that word, and that's how hard, she's trying to find a product to be able to meet all our kids' nutritional needs. So thank you for the report and to your staff for their amazing work over the years.
Ms. Kravchuk.
I would just like to join my colleagues in expressing my gratitude. Thank you so much to you and all of the staff for all of the work that you did, particularly during COVID and the just difficult times that we had. I personally watched all of that happen, and I was just in awe because it was hot. During the summer, it was hot after school, and to see the nutritional service workers in their masks outside for a number of hours. In the beginning, no fans, no nothing, maybe a piece of paper. And for them to be doing that, walking to the cars, it was an extra ask, and they went above and beyond and did that. And then dealing with the supply chain issues. At one point, there was no milk, and it was just chaos, and constantly having to just pivot and be able to deal and do it all with a smile and provide that for the kids. I just, as a parent and consumer, thank you so much. I do have a question. I just absolutely hate to see wasted food. And I know when we transitioned over to the plate having, a certain number of components on it, the kids do have to take it, even if they absolutely hate apples and oranges, for example, but they will come back to their table, and then you just see them toss the whole tray into the garbage. Prior to COVID, we had like those share tables, and kids were able to put the food that they didn't want there, and then other children could have seconds or whatever. I know we've really moved away from that. Is there an option there, some kind of solution where, it's not just being directly tossed into the trash can?
Yes, thank you. I think the share tables went away during the pandemic, and we are slowly transitioning them back. So our goal is definitely starting the new school year that we should have. Some schools have already started. And the hope is that all the schools then that can have a share table, we will go back to having the share table so other students can, take anything from there that they would like to have additional of.
I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you. And then one question that may be outside of your purview, but it's something else that I have observed, and that, and I actually have seen schools that do make like a time requirement where they have to sit at the table for a certain amount of time. And I don't know if this is beyond the purview of nutritional services, but you also have the kids who just sit there, talk for 5 minutes, and then they just go to recess, book it. They don't eat anything. Anything we can do there?
Superintendent Basanelli.
You're right. That's out of her purview.
Yeah.
It would be out of mine too, but I think that's a site-based issue.
That's a site-based decision. And so the site administrator, as well as the folks that are supervising during lunch and teachers, they coordinate a lot around that to try to make sure that students are maximizing time eating and also getting out and expending energy. So it is a fine balance that we talk about every single year.
Maybe we bribe them with the chocolate milk. You eat
Right,
something
right.
and then you get chocolate milk. Thank you.
Mr. Miller.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the presentation and thank you for everything you and your staff did. Really appreciate it. I did have a question. This is, and I'm not expecting an answer more, just, but it came to me. I do artificial sweeteners, and now with everything I've read, I'm concerned that I've been using artificial sweeteners. And is that old argument, 2% versus 1% milk? Do you want a little more fat, a little less sugar? And I guess those are decisions that are made for us. Or do we have some say in that kind of thing, whether we use artificial sweeteners and stuff?
So currently, the USDA is proposing a added sugar restriction, and the proposal would include that, I believe, starting the 24-25 school year. So that is open for public comment on USDA's website. So additional sugars are definitely the target to go away. The percentage of milk is what we can offer. So you can offer a non-fat plain milk, which we have found students don't like a non-fat white milk. But if it is a non-fat flavored milk, so we do have the option of a 1% milk or a non-fat milk to offer. And we have to offer both options on a daily basis.
Do we risk losing funding if we offer chocolate milk?
We won't. I don't know what's going to happen in 24-25, but we do have to offer the two options at every meal on a daily basis.
Perfect. Thank you.
Ms. Costa.
I don't think you can hear thank you too many times. It really was masterful. And to see all of the employees who are out and food services, nutritional services, and custodians and everybody to make sure our kids got fed. It was something that I was so proud of, to know that San Juan really kept our kids with food, with healthy food at a time that was so difficult. So thank you so very much for all of the efforts, and please thank staff, because it did make a difference in kids' lives. And I do know, as a former principal, it made such a difference from my students to have the 2 meals a day. I was so grateful when we went to a breakfast program, because we didn't always have a breakfast program. We went to a breakfast program because for many of my students, those 2 meals were the total meals for the day for them. So what you do is incredibly important. Thank you.
Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you. I forgot to mention something for my colleagues that I think you guys need to know, that every tray that a student walks by has to be counted. And if that student does not have one of the 2 items that Ms. Nair referred to, that plate does not get counted. So if that plate does not get counted, it doesn't go to the overall of students being fed that day, which is a means to report and how we get funded from that. So that's why it's so important that these items are on that plate. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what okay.
I appreciate that. I didn't know that. There'll be any other questions, comments from the colleagues? My colleagues noted most of the things I wanted to say, so I'm not going to repeat anything, but thank you, except for the thank you for everything that you do every day, pre-pandemic, through pandemic, today. I mean, it's a whole lot feeding all these kids. And like I've said once, and I'll say it a million times, it's really hard to focus on your studies when you're hungry, period. I do want to note too how responsive you are to community. I tend to get a lot of questions from community about our food program, nutrition program, and it goes straight to SNAE. And you have these just detailed explanations as to why we do what we do, but also you're so receptive and responsive to new ideas. And that's been many, many times over the years. So I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to respond to community and students. I was at DPM, Del Paso Manor, for Read Across America time. And one of the classes had a Q&A for me, and they were asking the hard-hitting questions. And one of them was, what's your favorite food? And I said, Indian food. And then they start, well, what kind of Indian food? I'm like, chana masala. They're like, we just had that the other day. And I said, no, you didn't. I know you didn't. You must be being confused with something else. They're like, no. So at DPM, they actually had chana masala. I'm like, school lunches have come a long way from when I was a kid, and they loved it. And everyone's like, oh, it smelled so good. Oh, it's my favorite now too. So really even just introducing fruits from around the world, and they get to experience something different, something that actually has some flavor and spice to it. I mean, what a magical thing. And it gave me something to relate in that moment in a different way over food that was under your purview. So it was really special to me. And I wanted you to know that. And I want to highlight one other thing that you mentioned about the uplifting nutrition education, which is so darn important, because you know that we have nutrition is a health issue. Sadly, in our healthcare system, we don't get a lot of health nutrition education from our primary care providers. It's just not how it works, right? We go there to fix illnesses, not necessarily to live well. And so it's so important as an education system that we're providing that level of education, and that's going to be led by the experts, which is under your purview because you're the one doing that work. I think makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. So I was really happy to hear that we're going to be doing more in that direction in the fresh foods on campuses. I know other countries do a lot of that because if we don't teach them where they're going to learn, and I know all of us at home are doing the best we can, but I could certainly do better because we teach what we grew up with and what we know, right? So wanted to highlight that as well. So I think that's it, but thank you. Did I catch you off?
No, thank you.
I appreciate you. It's always wonderful to see you, my friend, and thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
I want to clap after every report tonight. Let's just do it. It's just important. Ms. Krochek and I had a Jedi moment right there. Like, yeah.
Wait for bylaws.
Yeah, for bylaws. We'll see how that goes. We are at item I3, second interim budget report. Ms. Stahlheber.
Good evening, President Creason, board members, Superintendent Bassanelli, and Mrs. Cunningham. The superintendent is recommending that the board review and approve the 2022-2023 second interim report and the budget revision reflecting projected year budget totals. Tonight, we're reviewing our second interim budget report. The second interim provides an update of our budget based on fiscal information through January 31st. The following information will reflect the changes since the board approved the first interim budget. So LCFF revenues reflect an increase of 1.9 million. This was attributed to our funded average daily attendance increasing by 44.68 since we brought those numbers at first interim. And you can see our other categories had some small increases. Our state revenues reflect $152,000 increase. That is mainly a result of the updated ADA for lottery projections and then some other adjustments to state revenues. Our local revenues reflect an increase of $799,000 due to adjustments made to interest earnings and donations that are budgeted as received. On our restricted revenues, you can see that our federal revenues reflect a decrease of $81,000. That's just a result of some adjustments. Our state revenues reflect a decrease of $9.3 million, and that's attributed to the projected 40% reduction to the arts, music, instructional materials discretionary block grant projected in the governor's budget. So this is our most significant change, and we added it to our second interim based on guidance that was received from the statewide California County Superintendent of Schools Business and Administrative Services Committee. They advise districts statewide. They meet monthly as a committee and then provide what is called the common message at each budget cycle. And then that guides some of our assumptions, and the county uses it when they do their AB 1200 review of our fiscal information. Our local revenues also have an increase of 2.3, again, because local revenues that come in as donations are restricted funds, and we do not budget them until we receive them. So this is the summary of our general fund revenues. The largest source of our revenue is from the local control funding formula, which is comprised of state aid, the Education Protection Act funds, and property taxes. And you can see that makes up 61.6% of our total revenues. Our general fund unrestricted expenditures. Unrestricted expenditures increased by 993,000. Overall, the decrease related to salary and benefit reflect revisions made as a result of open positions remaining unfilled through January 31st. Of the 1.28 million increase in the non-salary and benefit categories, 500,000 is a result of increased utility rates. And so you've probably seen some communications on that. We've seen large increases. I think it was PG&E and SMUD. Yeah, both of them, we saw really large increases. The remainder is due to allocation of site discretionary funds that were also intended for positions that they have not been able to fill. And so we've moved them to other categories, such as the supplies and materials and services. General fund restricted expenditures decreased overall as a result of the reduction of salary and benefits related to the unfilled positions. Because of these unfilled positions for our categorical programs, we have shifted some of those funds to the category for contracted services. And that is because we have a requirement to provide services for our students who have an individual education plan. Salaries and benefits make up 83.34% of our total expenditures. So when we break it out though, between unrestricted versus restricted, our salary and benefits total 90.43% of our unrestricted expenditures. On the restricted side, it's 73.54%. That's good information to know because when you look at that, it doesn't leave a lot on the table for other expenditures. So this is our general fund summary. It has unrestricted and restricted funds reflected here. The restricted amount that you see in the components of ending fund balance is projected to decrease, and that is again tied to that 40% reduction for the art, music, instructional material block grant. The change in our committed funds is a result of projected increases in our supplemental carryover funds. And again, that was due to the adjustment in the LCFF calculation because of the increased ADA. This is our general fund supplement summary with the supplemental breakout. This again shows the change from our supplemental and our base. It doesn't have the comparison of the prior period, but if you were to put them side by side, you would see that increase. And that again is a result of the increase in the ADA assumptions. These are our other funds. Not a lot has changed since first interim on for our other funds, which are like ASB, our charter school, our SELPA funds, where we pass through our funds for our charter and for our programs, adult education, child development, our child nutrition program, our deferred maintenance. Where you're going to see the bulk of our expenditures though are in the building funds, and that's related to projected expenditures for the building of new projects. These are the planning factors we use when we're projecting for our multi-year projections, our MYP. So you can see that we take this data from multiple sources. Some of them come from the Department of Finance. We also use School Services of California's dartboard. And you can see that we're reflecting some increases in the PERS employer rate. And that is tied to, they've had a decrease in their investment returns, which has increased the unfunded liability for the state. And because we are required to pay a proportionate share, we'll see that increase as long as the economy is in the state it's in currently and they're experiencing losses. We also know that STRS has had the first negative return since I believe 2013. But that takes statutory change to change that rate. So it could happen. We're not sure, but we have not heard of anything from our fiscal advisor, our partners, LAO, Department of Finance. But as we get closer to the May revise, we may hear more about that. So this is an overview of our multi-year projections. And if you look at it currently, it shows that we're increasing our fund balance. A big piece of that, though, is tied to some of those one-time funds that are in the current year budget. And so we still have not finished or brought our plan for the art and music instructional block grant to the board. And until we bring that, we won't budget those expenditures. And so right now they're just falling to the bottom line. when you look in those projected. The amount of that block grant is 13.5 million. So that was reduced from 22.6, which was our original apportionment. So the other funds that we have not budgeted yet, because it's still part of our recovery plan, are the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant Funds, and that's 43.5 million. So right now, those are falling to the bottom line, which is really contributing to seeing that fund balance increase in those out years. We know once we have the plans and we know how we're going to use those funds, you'll see that in the projections. So probably come adopted budget, you're going to see some changes in those numbers. So we'll be submitting a positive certification to the county office. And then we will continue to work on building efficiencies, monitoring our actions that result in greater gains for our students academically, social, emotionally, so that we use our resources strategically. As new information is released from the Legislative Analyst's Office, the Department of Finance, and the Governor's May revision, we will update our assumptions and our projections. And you'll see those when we bring back our adopted budget, which will include our estimated actuals for the current year. Any questions?
Thank you for the report. Question, comments from the board? Mr. Avey?
I can get to work. Thank you for the report. Thank you all, sir, for taking me to budget school. I appreciated all the learning. It's a lot to handle. I will say it was helpful going into the second interim report because it gave me a better sense of kind of what to look for. I think you were talking in your presentation about salaries. That's the majority of our budget, a significant majority. So I did dive in a bit. And I just wanted to clarify, I see the average salary for teachers is $87,814. Does that reflect the 12% increase that was approved last year?
So the 10%
Or 10%?
and the 0.75 was already in the budget.
Okay.
Because we had settled. And then in our out years, we already have the 4.5% increase for next year.
Okay, so that's already planned.
Yes.
Okay, and then so I also saw in there, what was it? New hire teacher salary, which was at about 60,000. That was good to know. I did ask for information about median salary to figure out what's the middle point for teacher salary. And I believe the number I heard back was 92,400. So that means half of our teachers are making more than that dollar amount. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Or
And
in that amount.
yeah,
It kind of was in the middle of the number where we hit the median.
so around that number.
Yeah.
Okay. And then also just understanding kind of the top of the scale, since we covered, new teacher, the top of the scale is 110 base salary, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then I just saw in here, the health and welfare, we have those split out. I think we all understand that. I saw the payroll related costs. My understanding was that's depending on the position, that STIRS, that's kind of some of the other costs associated.
STIRS, Medicare.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Very good. So that was very helpful to understand, especially since I think that was for about 1,300 positions. So I appreciate that information.
Other questions, comments? Being none, this is an action item. Is there a motion to approve the 2022-2023 second interim report and the budget revision reflecting projected year budget totals? Moved by Ms. Viescaz. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Avey. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions. That was unanimous. Thank you so much for your report. Item I4, Curriculum and Standards Committee Bylaw Revisions. Mr. Allen.
Thank you, President Creason, members of the board, Superintendent Bassanelli, and Mrs. Cunningham. Tonight, we have two items, the curriculum and standards bylaws, followed by the facilities bylaws. Just to start tonight, I want to start a little bit about the why. So we obviously have one piece of information that we need to change in these bylaws, which is that they currently conflict with themselves. In the same sentence, they say that there are a certain number of members on these committees. And then in that same sentence, they say each board member gets to appoint 2 committee members. So that math no longer adds up as we've expanded the board from 5 to 7. So certainly we want to rectify that language in these documents. The other why for the changes that are being proposed tonight is as we had the conversation about the Local Control Accountability Plan Parent Advisory Committee
and its bylaws a few months ago, there was a interest expressed about aligning the expectations and the experiences that both our committee members and members of the public would have when interacting with committees. So in doing that, we've attempted to take some of the language from the LCAP PAC bylaws and move it to these committee bylaws as well. I will foreshadow for you, we are having similar conversations with the Special Education Community Advisory Committee. So those bylaws will be coming to you as well at a near meeting in the future, with, again, the intent to align language so that we have a similar experience. When you come as a member of the public, you'll know how to engage in public comment. You'll know how the expectations are for joining the committee. All those pieces should be very similar look and feel, while still allowing for some customization based on the need of the individual committee. With that, I'd like to just very quickly walk you through some of the major changes that are proposed. And again, tonight you will see that the Facilities Committee and the Curriculum and Standards Committee are very similar. So you will see these changes are replicated in both documents. The first that I will highlight for you is that we add section 5 on meetings. And this is just a method for reaffirming our use of the Brown Act and for dictating that we are going to have a process for setting that meeting schedule. In our LCAP PAC bylaws, we go a little more specific to meet their specific needs. Here we leave it to making sure that there's a process for the committee to set its calendar each year so that we can publish that and get that out to our community as well. In what will become section 7, staff liaison, I do want to highlight that we are adding some language there. As we looked at how all of our committees were operating, we found that the staff liaisons were not necessarily all providing the same level of service to our committees. So on some of our committees, we had volunteers who were doing the minutes, who were publishing the agendas. And we really strongly feel that should be staff duties. We shouldn't be asking our volunteers to have to take on that piece and make sure that gets done. So we are putting that in as a staff liaison responsibility, just to make sure we have that clear expectation and that doesn't occur in the future. Under section 9, composition, I will note this aligns with what we have done with the LCAP PAC in that it does require that of your 2 appointees, one of them comes from your trustee area. It does then still allow for you to appoint the second one from any qualifying member within the district. So that gives you that flexibility that if you have another member from another board member's area, you are able to appoint them still if they're a good candidate that you would like to appoint. Under what will become section 11, the term, I will note that this does implement term limits, which would be a new element for both of these committees. The language that we have used in LCAP PAC and which is suggested here is that it is 3 consecutive terms. So each term is 2 years. 3 consecutive terms would give you 6 years. And then you would need to leave the committee to make sure that we have room for new voices coming onto that group as well. We also under term reduce from 3 to 2 the number of unexcused absences a member would have before it generates a notice to the appointed board member. The intent is not necessarily to create a gotcha situation or anything like that, but simply to make sure that if there is a concern about the ability to continue serving on a committee, we start addressing that sooner rather than later and help support a committee member if we need to in making sure that they can continue on that committee or that we find another committee member if that's what needs to be done. What will become section 14, election. Again, here we just better define the expectations and role of our officers. So you will see there is more detailed information specific to the role of the chair. Again, wanting to make sure that staff liaison duty is under staff liaison. The role of the chair is clearly spelled out there. And again, we do provide for the ability of the board liaison to continue operations if the committee for some reason can't select a chair. So in that organizational meeting, if they don't have a quorum at the meeting, if they are unable to reach a majority vote, we do allow for the board liaison to help facilitate the leadership of that committee so the committee can continue until such time that the committee can elect its own chair. Under what we come section 15, agendas. This really is the section where we work to align some of those practices. So what we say is that we want to align those practices loosely based on what happens at the Board of Education meetings. So here's where you will see the public comment section on how that works and the 2-minute limit, asking to fill out a card, all those fine pieces will be in there. It does require that we have public comment before our general business items for anything that's not on the agenda. It also ensures that we have an opportunity for public comment during an item as well. And it does maintain the existing language that's in the bylaws for committee members to ask for agenda items to be placed on the agenda by making that request of the committee chair. It does then add an element to that process, asking for a majority vote of the committee. One of the pieces of feedback we heard from committee members as we've had some conversations across multiple committees is that as new items have been suggested, sometimes it's just easier not to say anything and just say, okay. So this just helps reaffirm like this is an interest of a majority of the group. So I don't expect it will be a big issue for folks, but I want to point out that it is a slight change to the process we have right now. And then in what will become section 16 annual report, we do move that. Right now it says it is due in November. We kind of came to the conclusion that that's a little awkward to start your work at the start of the school year and then by November have to have an annual report for the board. So we are suggesting we move that deadline to June. And then finally, I will note that we have a new section in section 17, which is amendments. Currently, the bylaws are silent on how to amend them. So we feel that's an important section to add. So we have some clarity there. It does provide a process for committee members to make those suggestions, as well as staff or board to be able to make those amendments if there are changes to law or other needs as well. And then finally, I do want to highlight, we did go and visit with our committees last week. So we went to our facilities committee, curriculum and standards, and I've been having lengthy conversations with our community advisory committee for special ed. So I got to visit with all three of those folks, all three of those groups last week. I will highlight for you in kind of general broad terms some of the conversation we had and some of the concerns they had. There was conversation around term limits. The concern being expressed that if you have term limits, you have a loss of knowledge in that committee. When you have somebody who's served for an extended period of time, that built up institutional knowledge could be lost. There was a suggestion that if you get to that third consecutive term and there's nobody who has applied to serve in that slot, that we allow for somebody to continue past the term limit. That was one of the suggestions the committee member had. And I said I would pass that on to the board. There was an individual who expressed concern about serving, the limit on serving on multiple committees. So right now we do have language that says you cannot serve on 2 board appointed committees. So with the proposal would bring the special education community advisory committee to be a board appointed committee, which means for curriculum and standards, facilities, and CAC, you would not be able to serve on 2 of those committees, or LCAP PAC, you wouldn't be able to serve on 2 of those committees. So the concern being that for some of those committees, there are certain perspectives that might be lost if you're not able to serve on 2. So for example, a member of the Special Education Community Advisory Committee certainly has that special education lens on, and they share that lens when they serve on another committee. So if we don't allow for that, would those other committees lose that lens was the concern. We did have some conversation around definition of terms. One of the questions was when we talk about community members, is it inclusive of students? Another around unexcused absences and what constitutes an unexcused absence. And then who kind of settles those conversations if somebody is disputing what those definitions may be. In talking with the Legal Services Office, the recommendation there is that we certainly monitor those conversations. If we have to go in and there's are disputes, that we go back and add language to bylaws. But that would be the proper way, is if there's something that is uncertain, we go back and add language to bylaws. And the final piece that I will share, there was a concern expressed by multiple committee members around having a code of conduct for committee members, and that if the code of conduct were to be violated, that there be a method for removing committee members other than just having the appointing board member bear that responsibility. So I think the interest there was around feeling safe and inclusive in the committee environment, and ensuring that there was the ability to have a pathway that if that were challenged or folks were feeling unsafe, that question and concern could be raised in a delicate way. With that, I do point out that we are at discussion point tonight. So this item is just for discussion. We'd love to hear your conversations and your interests. We will then bring back modified language for you on the 28th to consider for approval.
Thank you so much for the report. Questions, comments from the board, Ms. Viescaz?
Thank you for the report and for the work that's gone into this to date. It certainly makes sense as we look to align the composition of our committees to the composition of our new team. One thing I want to note, actually, I have a question first. It's my understanding, but it could be wrong, that for the LCAP PAC, they're largely on consent, but that those members come to the full board for approval. Is that accurate?
So our previous model was that those folks were recruited and brought in on a list to the board for approval by the entire board. We've moved away from that model with our last update to where those folks are appointed by individual board members now.
I think that was to be in alignment with to match the composition of these committees, right? I guess one thing that I would like for at least consideration, or that I want to put out there for consideration, is perhaps meeting in the middle of those two policies. I think generally this is an expansion of our committees, which is great and definitely allows for more input. But perhaps having these committees be appointed by an individual board member, but subject to what is hopefully kind of a approval of the full board coming forward for a full vote. I would like to see language to that effect here, or at least have it considered or discussed amongst my colleagues this evening. I think the expansion of the committees is good. I think their obligation is to advise us as a board as a whole. And so while I think it should completely remain the discretion of individual board members to appoint, to make sure that we have full representation across all of the geographic areas of our communities, I think that one more kind of layer of input from us as a whole would be beneficial. That's where I wanted to start. I'm gonna hold back. Oh, and the only thing I wanted to mention was just affirmatively state, I like the idea of a code of conduct. I'm just not sure what that would look like, or if we would be putting that together, or if the committee would be putting that together. If there's any examples on other similar codes of conduct, if you have any other input at this point to further inform that piece, I certainly welcome it, but I generally support the concept.
So with the code of conduct, we've given a little bit of thought there. And I think we have a couple of pathways forward. I think if that's the interest, we can certainly make sure we have language in here that refers to a code of conduct. And then we can quickly work to implement the code of conduct. What I would recommend is that we consider pulling together a cross-sectional group of committee membership and building that code of conduct. The other option would be to look at some of our existing language in board policy and other places. We have our human dignity policy and other pieces that we could refer to. So I think there's a couple of different routes we could take to formulate something in that regard. And Ms. Viescaz, I just want to make sure I clearly understand your suggestion in that you would suggest that board members, rather than directly appoint, would nominate an appointee, and then the entire board would, almost like the Senate, get to vote and say yay or nay on that appointee.
I think that's generally the concept. I would maybe use slightly different words, like the board members still make the appointment and subject to the kind of full board approval. But I think we're speaking the same language here, and that, yes, that is.
I'm thinking
general
process in my head versus yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Miller.
Yeah, I agree with the ratification process, both for, yes, I think that's what we're all looking for. And that's for an appointment or removal. And I think that goes to the next thing was, I don't want to reinvent the flat tire. If we have existing codes of conduct, we should use those and not invent something new just for a couple committees. And certainly if I caught wind that one of my appointees was misbehaving, That's I'd be having them on the phone right away and probably be having some words. But then I would bring it back and say, hey, I'd be a little more polite and say, I'm appointing somebody else for this position and go with that. So I like that idea. I wanted to point out just one of the weird things about term limits is if someone leaves midterm and you have someone fill in, we've had disputes like halfway through someone's last term, they gotta go. I don't think it counts. That usually doesn't count when you are appointed to fill someone else's term. And then you get the 3 full terms or whatever it is after that. That's important to me. I noticed we've got the Brown Act in there. Does the Green Act not apply to these 2 committees?
The Green Act would not apply to these 2 committees
Perfect.
because they are board appointed.
And then the other one, and I think this, let me get back up here on my iPad. Bear with me. I went annotations. On the visitor comments, and I think this applies to our board agenda because I thought it was visitor comments, and I love it that it'll be limited to 2 minutes. You know, I'm a fan of brevity and extended for those who require. I could perceive sometimes where the chairperson or the president at their discretion may want to lengthen or shorten public comment. Just a little, and it's for the rule follower saying, hey, it doesn't say she can lengthen it or he can shorten it. And so I don't know if it needs to be codified in the bylaws or anything like that, but it was just a thought I had as I was looking at these.
I will highlight on that point. We do have the 2-minute limit in these bylaws, but we do not have the 30-minute per item limit in these bylaws.
Right.
So as far as allowing public comment, the chair would have that ability to extend. Where I would pause for a moment and give some thought is the ability to extend on individual commenters, just to ensure that we have that equality of opportunity in speaking between public speakers. I think that piece is important to keep on an equal basis.
Yeah, well, and I think at times when we're on an agenda item and there's questions of the speaker, their time may go over 2 minutes, just getting the answers. And that to me is more a board prerogative than the speaker's, right to 2 minutes or whatever. But no, I fully support it. I just was thinking of maybe some situations where we need a little latitude. Like if you've got one speaker, you might be able to let them go 3 minutes. That's all I have for now.
Mr. Avey.
So thank you, Mr. Allen. I will lead the round of applause at the end of this because I've done bylaws and I know it's far more complicated than you'd ever imagine. Every change is a rabbit hole. So with that being said, I have some recommendations. So first off, on term limits, I'll just say I generally don't support term limits. I saw it in the state assembly where it really impacted institutional knowledge and buy-in. But even just recently, I came off of the summer camp board. I was on there for 6 years. I was actually one of the short timers, but we had a really nice balance of Larry, who was there since the 80s, me, who was kind of a short timer, and then we had some other folks a little bit longer. And it really does provide that breadth of experience that I support and I think is really helpful, especially on some of these items that are so deep. I mean, curriculum and standards, I got to imagine it takes you 3 years just to figure out what you're actually talking about in that committee. So I would actually advocate to remove the term limits. It's from the bylaws if my colleagues agreed with that. I appreciate the intent for the committee cross-referencing and limiting it to 1. I do have concerns, especially about curriculum and standards, facilities, and I forget the proper name of the committee, but for disabilities. I think I had an issue with DLAC, but I think that is a different kind of committee. So you could be on DLAC and curriculum and standards, but so that's a little bit difficult for me. I think the fact that we're switching to board appointments solves some of that because each board member gets to decide, do I want this person on multiple committees, right? So it puts the onus on us to decide where do we want to use the resources, especially for volunteers. Those are good volunteers are hard to find. And so I think it's up to us to make sure they don't get burned out. And then I think just one thing in there, and I don't have an answer for it. There's a balance between committee authority, staff resources, and board authority. One thing throughout was I wasn't always clear on the line of reporting between the committee to the board, the role of the superintendent. How do you have those conversations? I think I got guidance on how does a committee chair go and present during board appointed committees, right? Like, I think it would be helpful if that was in the bylaws so everybody knows. The bylaws are the rules. When in doubt, you can look at that. And then also things like what happens when there's maybe a disagreement between the committee chair, staff, and, you know, what do they do? I think help clarifying some of those roles may help that so that we can get the advice and guidance from the committee as intended, while also making sure that they're working cooperatively with staff. So again, I don't know how to solve that, but maybe it's just a matter of clarifying roles and responsibilities within the bylaw. So, but I think the big takeaways for me were just term limits and cross-referencing. I do support the idea of ratification of new members. I like the idea that a board member can rescind one of their appointments, but I also understand that if the committee has a problem with somebody, if they want to elevate to the board, maybe there is a process where the board can consider that. Because the board just comes at it from a different perspective. But I guess as somebody that appoints somebody, I want to have the authority to say, they're not representing me the way that I would like them to represent me, and I'm going to appoint somebody. So again, it's that balance that I don't know how to solve, but I'm guessing Mr. Allen will, which is why I'll lead the round of applause for you when we're done. That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you. Let me start by saying that in years past, committees fluctuate. And I was thinking about, I've been on, over the last 12 years, 11 years, whatever. I would say that the average term that a volunteer serves on a committee throughout the district is probably 2 or 3 years. It's not 6 years, it's not 8 years. There are some that do the 3 terms, but that's very rare. That being said, too, I also have been the board liaison to where the committee had a habitual problem getting quorum. Okay, and now we're going to 14 members. So what's quorum in 14? You see what I'm getting at? And if they can't have a quorum at that meeting, it's very hard for them to function. So my only concern is that we, what is a quorum? For example, facilities, right now, currently we have 12 members, okay, not 14, but 12. So is quorum when they vote a percentage of the 12? Does that make sense? Because I think we need to know that, because if they're 14, then we can figure that out. It has to be, more than 50%, which is 8, I guess, is quorum. So we need to, we need to allow our committees to be able to function as a committee, because it's very hard to do 2 or 3 months consecutively and you don't have a quorum. So that's my only concern as we talk about this, that we take that into account, because it's very important. And that's it. That's all my comment.
And Mr. Hernandez, just to clarify, the language that's existing in bylaws counts quorum as the majority of appointed seats. So if there is a vacant seat, that is not counted in the quorum calculation. So for example, if there's only 12 appointed right now, the majority would be that getting past that 6.
Thank you.
Ms. Costa.
I very much agree with the ratification of new members, and the code of conduct, I think, is an important addition. Under unexcused absences, I know the question came up at curriculum and standards, and I thought about it and I thought it makes sense to me that we identify what we accept as unexcused absences. And I tried to look it up today. But Gamut and I were not having a good afternoon together. It kicked me out 15 times. So I think that my phone and Gamut were not aligned. But I'm thinking that there may be something in the language within Gamut that talks about what's an unexcused absence for a school board member. And I know we certify when somebody for an excused absence. I think there's also excused and unexcused. So I will continue to I'll try with my computer tomorrow to see if there's anything in the bylaws about excused versus unexcused, but it makes sense that we have that identified and it's the same for every committee so that what's excused for curriculum and standards is excused for facilities. And it's probably a small point, but I think it will help. You said something at curriculum and standards that I thought was really important, and it really made a difference to people afterwards. They had after conversations with me about that people would be held in place. For instance, if I had 2 appointees who were not from my area, that they would finish their term and then at the end of their term, they would have the ability, I would have the ability, or could at any point, I guess, appoint somebody, but that if I was pleased with the work that they were doing, that they could finish their term and then at the end of their term, I would not be able to appoint them again because they were not in my area. So that made sense to people. They really felt that was fair. And hopefully the rest of the board will agree that we let them finish their terms and then we go to 1 per area. So that's all I have. I do like the code of conduct. I think that's important.
Thank you. Ms. Krupchak.
Do we currently have some type of code of conduct for district volunteers?
For volunteers in a general sense, we do have some requirements as you go through that sign up process of.
I'm sorry, what process?
The volunteer sign up process.
Okay.
There's a volunteer sign up process that takes you through getting fingerprinted and background checked and all that fun stuff. And there is some language in there that talks about requirements of reporting possible child abuse and pieces. I don't know that it goes into all of the topics that the committees were probably worried about. But I think there might be some language there we could potentially look to point to as well.
Okay, I'm just wondering if it makes sense to add it into the committee bylaws or if that's something that is more general and we do for all volunteers in the district. I think it makes sense to have, general guidelines for all district volunteers, regardless of what capacity they serve. So just a thought of where we could place that. I am not opposed to, what do we call it? Ratification or process. I would probably recommend that we put it on to consent as a just general, and then unless someone has, any kind of opposition for expediency, I see a lot of head nods. So that's the extent of my comment. And Pam, Ms. Costa, I do definitely agree that the current appointees can carry out their term. We wouldn't have to switch over.
Okay. Oh, I turned myself off. Okay, great. I just have a couple of notes. I want to respond to some of the ideas and concerns. Number one, I just want to say I do appreciate the effort to move into some continuity in between our committees. I think it's helpful. So let's start with term limit. My initial thought, and I'm glad we have a little time to think about it, is now that we're moving into the appointee process, we're not going to have this kind of serial member now. And so if we as a board member want to appoint someone, I don't know that I want to release that quite yet, especially as we're moving into this new way of doing things. So that's my initial thought about the term limits as of right now. My thought about can't serve on on more than one committee. I do generally like that idea though. I think that there's a lot of voices out there, and if we can get more people at the table to bring that voice, that'd be great. And it's possible for someone to serve one term. I mean, there's so much intersectionality in the work, right? You know, all of us are wearing multiple hats, and our volunteers are too. So, you know, they could serve some time on one committee and move to another one. But I do have concerns about serving on more than one committee. I do like the code of conduct idea for committees as well as volunteers in general. I think that's a great idea. I do still appreciate the 2-minute limit for all. And it would concern me to have different rules or discretion. I do appreciate, you know, I would like, and I know we're moving into this. In Mr. AV, you spoke to this a bit, you know, just kind of what is the role of the board and the committee and staff. And I do like the idea to empower our committees to have more of an advisory role directly to us. I think that is important. Regarding quorum, totally agree. We need to make sure that our committees can function. So, I mean, everything goes to them before it gets to us. So we need to make sure they're high functioning. I think one thing would be helpful for me is to know the attendance record of our appointees. So if someone's not, you know, showing up or, and maybe, you know, they have stuff, I don't want to be critical with that. There's a lot of reasons why people may not be showing up, but at least we'll know. And then we can have a conversation with them and just how, you know, are they able to meet the commitment or not? And then put it on us. Do we need to appoint somebody else? Or maybe they need a support that we didn't realize. Maybe it's a childcare issue. Maybe, you know, who knows? And maybe it's something, I know in some of our committees, we do provide childcare. So maybe we could be helpful, or we could, you know, appoint someone else. Cause I think we need to take some more onus if the quorum issue is a quorum issue. And oh, and I wanted to know, so I have actually been looking at my committee list, who's who and where they're from. And yeah, it's going to be a whole thing for me in December, but a lot of you down there have committee members from my area. So I suggest towards the end of the year, we just kind of look at the full roster of who we got in the areas, because we might want to just do some Pokemon swapping. That was not a nice way to say it, but they are magical people. So you know, swap committee members. I mean that with love, because there's going to be a lot of people we're going to want to keep that are just in each other's areas that maybe we can, you know, give each other some tips on who to appoint. So we're not just starting from scratch when we maybe don't not need to.
Creating free agents.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. That was a much better way that I've been playing Pokemon Go, okay? Not to catch them all. All right. I think that's it for me. I know that was a whole lot, and there's a lot of ideas. So just wonder if we want to go another round around the dais, we can do that, Mr.
I just want to make a comment on how I think how we as a team can function in a manner that, for example, if I see a person on facilities that, you know, is not attending the meetings, and because we see our report in facilities, I'm not sure the rest of you do, that me as the liaison, I reach out to Steve and I say, hey, Steve, you know, I just want you to know Tanya hasn't been there for 3 months. And just a FYI, you know, so it allows him to be the first step to reach out back to Tanya and say, hey, is there a problem? Do I need to replace you before we get to possibly that embarrassment scenario? That's how I would like you to let me know of my reps on your committees.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that would be helpful for us, because I think that's a functioning way to work as a team, for what it's worth.
And if I can just add, the staff liaison does also inform the board member who appointed the member if there are attendance issues that are popping up. So there are other mechanisms too, to let you know.
Oh, I guess my appointees are showing up then, because I've never gotten that call.
No news is good news.
Yeah, I assumed it wasn't happening because I haven't gotten that call. I need to.
Can I ask a clarifying question? So with the idea around the volunteer code and following up on that, I don't know when the board when it was suggested, did that include the fingerprinting piece that also comes with volunteers? Is that
like
was
the
that a
live
part?
scan?
Yeah, was that a part of
I
the?
didn't talk about it.
I just wanted to clarify which part of because that is a part of the volunteer code.
So currently as an appointed committee member, you would not be subject to fingerprinting and a background check. Whereas going through a volunteer process to volunteer at a school site, you are subject to that process.
Mike, please.
Oh, sorry. I would say that we continue as we are, no, sorry. That a board appointed committee would not have to do that process as a volunteer that has to get fingerprinted. It's just, it's not easy to get people to serve on these committees all the time, and so that's my recommendation, that we continue as we are currently, which they do not have to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Avey. Mr. Hernandez, I was looking at you, Mr. Avey.
I agree with you, Mr. Hernandez. And I do like the idea of where we're talking about a code of conduct, because I think it's something that could apply to site councils. It could apply to, we have a lot of volunteer group meetings, and that may just help. I know that sometimes they can, at the site level, they can get contentious. So maybe that would be supportive. I did want to give one note on the ratification. That's actually how the County Board of Supervisors does it in a number of agencies, where it's on consent and gets approved, but it gives the board kind of some oversight. Just so. And I do appreciate the idea of just what can we do to foster more engagement with the committees, use them as a tool, use them as a body to do more research, to engage more, to do some of the groundwork for us and make that recommendation working with staff. I think that's incredibly valuable. So I appreciate all the work that we're doing on this, because I think this is the work we do that fosters that, right? When we set the rules, when we set the boundaries, that empowers them to do the work. So thank you.
Ms. Krepchek.
I'd just like to hear from my colleagues what the rationale would be to not require the fingerprinting of the volunteers. I think maybe I spent a long time in social services, but just thinking of and I guess they're generally not around kids, they're around adults. But are we concerned of their time, like that they wouldn't want to go do that? Can I hear the rationale for not fingerprinting?
Mr. Avey?
For me, it's just the time. Like, I don't think I had to go through that for site council. I don't think I was supposed to go through that for site council, but I'm just wondering about how much additional work that does create for volunteers. And especially if it's something that you do in the evening. Now it's something you have to go down during the day. Yeah, that's kind of it. It's just a matter of timing. But I don't know.
Mr. Hernandez.
I think there's a cost element too. Here I want to volunteer, but you're going to make me charge $50 to pay for my fingerprints, because I don't think the district's going to pick up that tab, nor do I think we want to. So I think time and cost. It's just that mindset too. I think that I have to go do this, you know what I mean, to be part of my community. And I would hope that we keep that barrier down to involve them.
Mr. Miller.
Yeah, my rationale would be, is there contact with students? And if there's not, I don't know that it's that big a deal. I would suggest if we did end up requiring them, that we foot the bill. That would be my only caveat. But so if it's cool and we don't anticipate any contact with students, but that's kind of goes against, we're here for the students, and so maybe there should be more contact from our committees with the students. So I'll leave it up to our attorney and the rest of you.
Yeah. I could argue both sides of that coin, so I'm really gonna leave it to
tough.
the colleagues, because yes, even though you may not be in the classroom, you're making decisions for kids. So there's, but there's some communities that are overly criminalized and we want their input, right? And so, yeah, that's a hard one. So I agree with everything that was said on the dais. Mr. Miller, I know that your light was on prior to Ms. Krepchek. Did you get what you needed from the group?
I did.
Okay. And I know you had your light on before that question. Did you have more?
No, I think she
Okay.
stole my thunder.
Got it. All right. Any other comments, questions?
Ms. Christian, if I could add two pieces.
Please.
One, I just want to clarify for anybody listening at home, we do fingerprint for free for volunteers, so I don't want that to stop anybody. We welcome you and we will pay for that fingerprinting cost. And then I do want to pose a question. One of the pieces that we did not propose a change to, but has been a discussion point, is the term of appointment, the timeline for that. Currently, it's aligned with you becoming a board member. So you become a board member in December, the terms start in January, but starts in the middle of the school year, because it's aligned to new board members coming on. So if you want to make that change, it's a little less awkward to have to move people around if that happens to line up. Some committee members have expressed that can be awkward to have that change in the middle of the year. If your chair, for example, is that person who then suddenly is pulled off because of that change in the middle of the year. So my question would be, is there an interest in keeping it in January to align with the board election cycle? Or would there be interest in aligning it with start of the school year to end of the school year?
Thoughts from the board, Mr. Miller?
Yeah, I see your point where it would be better, but again, when that board member goes, the new board member's coming in and they're going to want to make their appointment. So as awkward as it is coming in the middle school year or losing a valued member of a committee, when the board member goes. And see, for me, I would keep that board member. That would be my first appointment. You know, if I had someone else in mind, I'd wait. So those are, I think, personal choices.
Other thoughts? My initial thought is it makes sense to me to align it with the school year with the understanding, once there are board member, committee member, I mean, it's our discretion to do what we want to do. I mean, I feel the same way. I would probably keep them till the end as well. But again, we want these to be high functioning committees, you know, and I think that it would lend to their function if they could start at the beginning and roll all the way through. And we only have elections every 2 years. I think my vote is it makes sense to move into school year with the understanding that there are appointee and we can move them if we wanted to in the middle of their appointment. Mr. Avey.
Yeah, I think school year with at-will appointments, I think that matches up. It matches up well.
Other thoughts? Okay. Do you need any other clarifications? I know we talked a whole lot.
I do not.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
He's a man of his word. Love it.
I've never applied bylaws before.
Any other final
You've never
thoughts?
No.
Well, watch how this is about to be lightning. This next item, you're gonna love this, okay? We are now at item I5, Facilities Committee Bylaws Revision, Mr. Allen.
Ditto.
Ditto, unless you have anything you'd like to add.
Any questions, comments from the board? Seeing none, thank you so much. This item will come back March 28th. Same goes for the previous item. Board reports. Mr. Miller.
I do have one quick one. I wanted to remind everybody that the Citrus Heights Post of the American Legion, it will be hosting the Wall That Heals. It's a 3/4 replica of the Vietnam War Memorial. It's coming to Rush Park. It opens March 30th and it's 24/7. You can go by. They'll have it lit. It looks just like the original wall, and it's by the same people that funded and built the wall. And it goes through April 2nd, which is a Sunday. So Thursday, March 30th through April 2nd. And there'll also be an education center there. So I know tours are open for the schools. The gentleman contacted me. He hasn't heard from anybody. Thursday and Friday, they can do tours for classes students up to 100 at a time. They would do a little tour and explanation. So they're hoping some of the schools might show up and take advantage of that and incorporate it into our curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Any other board reports? Ms. Kravchuk.
I have really been enjoying my site visits to schools and learning a whole bunch. And as I've been learning, I'm just really, again, as a consumer, as a parent, thinking of how we as a district can do a better job of just communicating these various special things about the schools, like that are specific to the school, particularly since we're an open enrollment school and parents can decide where they send their kids. I was really pleased to learn that Arlington Elementary is a Project Lead the Way school. So there's STEAM initiatives there. I went to Ottoman Elementary. They do something called artful learning, where they incorporate just this like art perspective. It's very creative, the way that they approach just all lessons, everything that they do. And it's very different. And as a parent, it would be really neat to know what options are available at the various schools, if they're equally close to me, or maybe it's something I care very deeply about. And when I was at Sylvan Middle School, the counselors there presented a really thorough just informational kind of session about Naviance and how the kiddos navigate that to really decide like what college they're going to, but it's their school classes and looking at careers that they're interested in. And I just thought it would be a really wonderful board presentation for them to come and show us all of that. I had no idea that that's what they did. And it was very thorough. And maybe you've had this in the recent future or recent past that I wasn't a part of, but I was very, very impressed. And I just wanted to say that it's a really great program. If it was just part of that budget that we approved, I'm so glad we do that. It's awesome. And I would welcome more information about it to the general board.
Thank you, Ms. Krivchek. Any other board reports? Mr. Hernandez.
Just a very, talking. Okay. Sorry. Come on now.
Almost though.
Testing.
Yep.
So my colleagues know, on March 24th, the West Point Association is having a conference where they're bringing in cadets to be able to speak to students that would like to go to West Point or other military schools. And we kind of got in late in the game, but we ended up getting about 40 of our students that are going to the conference, March 24th, correct? That's the date. So that was last minute and they invited us, and I'm just happy to report that we have a good amount of students attending that. For students that may be going to a military academy.
That's awesome. Any other reports? Okay, just quickly, I wanted to share, I love Read Across America time. So I read to a ton of classrooms of all different ages. And usually I'm more excited to read to the littles because I feel like the older ones are looking at me like, okay, lady. But actually this year was the older ones that I connected with more. It was really fun. I had and I told the story about the chana masala. Say it again.
About Indian food.
About Indian food, connection over food. It was wonderful. So thank you to all the schools that invited me out. It's my favorite time of year. I got to visit Pasadena for the first time, and that was a wonderful visit. Another really small school with a lot of special kids with very specialized needs. And I had a really good time. And so I appreciated the time the staff took with me. Paula and I spent a wonderful rainy Saturday at the CSBA delegate meeting. Thanks again for talking us into that. It actually was a really good meeting. We got a wonderful legislative update. And just, it was, for me, that was my first delegate meeting. So it was nice to just kind of meet people. Seemed to be quite a few new people in the room. There's been a lot of turnover in the delegation. So not a ton to report, except for they have their legislative visits coming up. I am not able to participate in those, but I am going to be participating in the rest of their meetings. And last, I could only read. Oh, and I spent my Sunday at Rio at their WASC meeting, again in the rain, but it was a really good turnout of parents. I think Cliff, Principal Kelly mentioned all of the parents he invited showed up. Which is huge on a Sunday, and it was rainy. It was like 4:00. So, and yeah, it was really engaging, the conversation. So it was nice to sit and listen in community with the parents, and it seemed to go pretty well. Without getting into all the details, some of the things that we've heard here in the boardroom did come up in that meeting, and there was from the advocates themselves, and the parents had noted that there has been progress. So I'll leave it at that. It was, it was really nice to hear that. Yeah, they're doing work. There's work to be done, but there's progress, and that was great to hear in that room. And I think that ends my comments. Any others? Okay. We are now at item K, future agenda items. Do any board members wish to add any future agenda items? Seeing none, we do not need to return to closed session, so we are adjourned.